you know, as you can see, Jordan is fervently, you know, he's saying that he believes, like, essentially that as long as it's done right, you know, that Destiny can provide good, you know, it provides a better value when it's when it has the games as a service structure, because they continue to provide services for you as long as you're willing to pay for them at below a full game price. You know, obviously citing games like Call of Duty, you know, with the additional zombies DLC and all that, which you know, that's fine, but this conversation is actually a perfect segue to something that we want to talk about, which it's one of my biggest problems with the games as a service model that has arisen, where it basically, I believe that games as a service is basically an incentive for developers to actually go ahead and start monetization schemes. So what do I mean by monetization schemes? I mean things like loot boxes, vanity stores, battle passes, gacha systems. You know, I find those things most of the time to be problematic. Now, obviously, there's different cases that we can go ahead and tackle, like in different games, such as the infamous Battlefront 2. There's Overwatch, Call of Duty World at War, or COD in general. These are multiple different cases that we can go ahead and talk about. So, loot boxes, right? This is a very interesting conversation. What do you think about loot boxes?
I know they're abysmal. I agree with everyone there. They're the worst thing ever made. You know, to fully make a game around loot boxes is a bad thing. Like shooters like Destiny are fine because you don't pay for the loot. You're just trying to, you know, find, you know, better equipment and get kind of like a surprise thing for your effort. And, you know, the developers, obviously, they had to...
Thanks for the follow, Emerald. I appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the follow. So, you know, we're going to see situations where, like, in the early days, you know, you had Destiny where you do, like, an extremely difficult content, and you're like, man, I just wasted, like, an hour of my life, and I got, like, a green piece of gun. You know, that was the beginning of everything. But then they realized, you know, they have to respect the player's time, you know, the same way that they would in Call of Duty. If you play a lot of multiplayer, you unlock guns and unlock attachments. So that's where the looting thing came from. But loot boxes in general, hold on, I'm going to get to it now. The bad thing about loot boxes is that they made the whole system around you paying to unlock a better weapon, or you paying to unlock a skin or whatever, to make you have a better, you know, a better advantage while playing against other players. And I think that's where the problem came from. I don't know if you want to add into this with Battlefront, because I know you went through the whole thing, you studied it, you saw how Battlefront, you know, went to its lowest low points and how they had to change the whole game. 2 weeks
well, that's true too. So you said a couple of things that I want to address later, but since right now we're on the topic of loot boxes, I know Destiny wasn't really an abuser of loot boxes. We'll go ahead and leave that now. He's a big Destiny player. I'm not. I had big hopes for it because, you know, I love Bungie Halo. Like that was my jam when I was growing up. So, you know, I loved Bungie back then. I think with Destiny they kind of let the drop ball, if I'm speaking frankly, but he enjoys it. So we'll probably end up talking about Destiny a little bit more afterwards, but for right now, loot boxes. So yeah, what you said, Battlefront 2, actually very, very true. Additionally to Halo being one of the biggest games, like Bungie Halo being one of the biggest games that I used to play back in the day. You know, I used to play Combat Evolved in my computer class in middle school. I owned a Halo 2 on the Xbox. I played that for hours and hours and hours. I played Halo 3 on the Xbox 360, played that for hours and hours. Another game that I used to love playing, very much so, on the PlayStation 2 was Star Wars Battlefront. I had the original Star Wars Battlefront pretty much as soon as it released. Spent an ungodly amount of hours in that game. You know, doing...
We all did.
Yeah, exactly. I did the campaign mode, Galactic Conquest. And I didn't have online, you know, because I was too poor growing up for that sort of thing. But I did instead play... I just played a lot of the times the instant action, which, you know, as a little kid who loved Star Wars, I would just fantasize about being in the battles and, you know, being a clone trooper, being a droid, being a stormtrooper, being a rebel, and it was just endless hours of fun. And then Star Wars Battlefront 2 pretty much improved upon everything that was in Star Wars Battlefront 1. You know, they added the space battles, there was the heroes versus villains mode of back then, just so much content. And there was, you know, the first story, it wasn't really that much of a story. I think it was just like, did it even have cutscenes? I might have had cutscenes, I think, or voiceovers or something, right?
Yeah, it had voiceovers and it had like in-game cutscenes to kind of show like the combat areas or like the
Exactly.
but it wasn't like something
Battlefront 2, however,
yeah,
even though it did have in-game cutscenes, I think basically it also did in-game cutscenes and a voiceover. It basically had a clone trooper from the 501st Legion doing a voiceover, just kind of narrating what's going on at the point in that certain point of Star Wars. Right. Basically, just following all the different movies throughout the timeline, but just from the point of view of a clone trooper that served in the 501st. It was effective. It was an effective storytelling, and it was something that would satisfy, I would say, most Star Wars fans of even nowadays. Obviously the games haven't aged the best now. This is a game that's what, 15 years, 20 years old at this point or something. It's like 15, 16, 17 years old, whatever. And
fair amount of time.
But you know, it was amazingly solid, I'd say, for the age, you know, for its time. Now, games as a service completely bastardized to me what is Star Wars Battlefront, or at least with the specific example of
yeah, Splash. So you actually raised a pretty good point, which we'll actually get to a little bit later. I mean, right now we're going to talk about Battlefront, but that's actually a point that I was going to talk about as well, which we'll get to with Genshin Impact versus like the other looter shooters, because you have a point. It's like you take too long and then it gets boring. But if it's too fast, like I'm going to argue with you here, and I don't mean to argue with you, but it's just the truth.
Well,
like,
we can go ahead and have a section specifically where we for the future reference.
It will.
I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna have like a time where we take callers and stuff, so we can actually talk to you guys about your opinions on this stuff. But go ahead and leave what you want to say in the chat right now, so we can get to it like later as well.
But
so
we will come back around to that. That's actually one of the points that we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, and thank you, Emerald, by the way, for the compliment. I'm glad that you can listen to us while you're working on it as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, okay, so that's that. I'm getting to that right now. So here's the thing. So with Battlefront 1 I was extremely hyped for Battlefront 1 when it first came out back in 2014, 2015, because you know I was a big fanboy of the original series, and you know I was greatly looking forward to DICE's take on what Battlefront would be, because I was like, yo, just from the trailers I saw, I was like, this is gonna be the most beautiful this game ever is, and they could only improve upon what's already there, even if they don't give us what they gave us in Battlefront 2. The original Battlefront 2 for PlayStation and Xbox and stuff, and they give us what was just available in Battlefront 1, but with these graphics. Oh my god, amazing, you know? But what you got was just it was basically a blatant attempt to just take your money, you know? And I know that a lot of people, especially some of my followers on my Twitch, at twitch.tv/Michael C. Moore, they enjoy Battlefront, because that's how a lot of people found me, was playing Battlefront 2. And they also enjoyed the first DICE Battlefront. But to me, it feels kind of disrespectful when they don't give you any sort of campaign playthrough at all. And, you know, they did all these weird things that, like, you know, you have to, like, buy extra characters, and you don't even have legitimate vehicles in the maps anymore. You have to kind of, like, find tokens, and that's how you get in vehicles and all that. Like, why would you ever make that decision? That doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and it sucked too, because they're from Battlefield, so they've been doing this for years of like putting actual vehicles in the game, and I guess they were trying to, you know, find a way to monetize it while at the same time making it fair so that everyone can have a fair shot. I mean, I know in Battlefield you have like 10 people waiting to spawn in on the chopper or whatever, tapping the A button, and it always ruins the fun for the players that don't, you know, do that stuff.
Yeah, but let's
like what you call it?
Well,
scalpers, you know,
yeah, that's true. But let's rein it in, because we're talking about loot boxes in this segment. So you know, the point I'm trying to get to there is that I think that had a point. Trust me, I know that we're on loot boxes right now, but the point I'm trying to get across right now is that basically Battlefront, the first DICE Battlefront, to me felt like they were trying to put in a minimum amount of effort into this product, while making sure they kept in mind, hey, by the way, you know, let's take out like legit vehicles, just put tokens and stuff. But you know what we're not going to miss out on? Charging people for additional characters. So for a PlayStation 2 game, they gave us Mace Windu, Yoda, Kiadi Mundi, Anakin, Obi-Wan, all those characters,
Welcome back.
no problem. And of course, there was no DLC back then. So, you know, obviously we could have had more characters, but they at least gave us a decent cast. Now all of a sudden, we're basically cut down, I think, to it was just 4 or 5 heroes and villains, and then they're gonna get released afterwards, but you have to pay for them. And on top of that, it took out everything else that made the first game good to begin with. That's where loot boxes come into the situation, because then the loot box trend takes off, right?
Right.
And Battlefront 2 initially, when it first came out, and this is where I'm going to get to your point, Splash Cannon, was the biggest offense to the senses I've ever experienced. All right? There is documented videos where people showed, you know, with the whole star card fiasco and the way they were tampering with experience to push people to buy their loot boxes. I think it was something like, at a certain point, to level up just once, you would need to play for like a week nonstop. And I think that was not like, I'm talking about like 24 hours a day for a week nonstop. Like, you're not sleeping, you're not going to the restroom to even pee or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that bad. And so, yes, it's true. What you say now, Splash Cannon, is that it's not as bad because they fixed it. But here's the thing. They didn't fix it because, oh, we're good guy DICE and we care about our players. No, boy. They fixed it because literally it got the damage that was being done. And the fact that, you know, these games are also played by little kids and stuff, let alone adults and everything, are so predatory that the governments of the world were starting to come together to literally say, no, you're gonna stop this, or you're gonna get sued, and we're gonna take you're not gonna be allowed to make games anymore.
We're gonna basically ban all your games and like not even allow them to be sold.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, one thing I wanted to note real quick, Splash Can, just so you know, EA CEO says that all their games are games as a service. So I know you're saying that they dropped it, but all they did was they just stopped monetizing it so crazily. It's still there, it's just not as crazy. But according to the CEO, the creator, the owner of EA, says all their games are games as a service. Now, what that means is, like, just so we can kind of go back to the beginning here, because you might have missed the beginning. Like, games as a service is a combination of different things. It could be a live service model. It could be a live service model. It could be a loot box model, a gacha system model. So, you're gonna notice that, you know, Battlefront 2, despite the fact that it was monetized at first, but there is a service. It got updated for various times. It got free community updates. They added levels to the
here's the thing. He wasn't you weren't here. Okay, this is why I'm saying we have to limit. Like, we should still have interaction, but we have to limit how much we do it, because people who aren't here for the whole thing can kind of sidetrack it. So the definition with games as a service that we're running with, we actually got from it.
I'm trying to get into what we're talking about, though.
No, I know.
He's talking about specifically.
No, wait, hold on.
He's talking about specifically Battlefront 2. Like, I know that there's no service, but there is a service. They're updating it.
No, yeah, exactly. But again, this is why he doesn't know. We're using what we're using to define games as a service is basically this article, which, you know, games as a service, it may not be listed on EA's website or whatever now, but games as a service is basically like a monetization, like the monetization of video games by providing live services for it, which also includes patches and updates. And I believe in Battlefront's case, they got an update, I think it was like 3, 4, 5 months ago or something.
Yeah, the last update was in the summer or something like that. And it was basically like a bunch of things.
So even if they don't monetize it, like games as a service focuses or it kind of has the insinuation of monetization behind it, but even patches and updates that aren't paid for are still would make it considered a games as a service model.
Which is why it's called, you know, the other term that people use, which is the other version, is live service, which is, you know, where the game is online and the developers are continuously updating, patching, balancing, fixing, that sort of stuff. So Battlefront still has it, and according to CEO, like I said, all their games are games of service, whether we want to admit it or not. He says it, and they're the creators, so, you know, they do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You know, that's
so, but getting back on track here, in a way, I guess I should be thankful to Battlefront 2 with how abhorrent its abuse of the loot box system was.
Yeah, it was
that finally, once the government cracked down on them and they basically lost all their money and they almost had the Star Wars license revoked because of how bad their abuse was by Disney. That Disney almost took EA's license, the Star Wars gaming license, away from EA because of how bad the abuse was in this. Once that happened, all of a sudden you look at a game, no more loot boxes. Like, I actually tried getting back into Overwatch. I think end of 2018, their loot boxes are pretty much like gone. You can't buy them anymore. You can only unlock them for EXP, like with your experience, just playing.
That's how it should be in the first place.
Exactly.
It should be a cosmetic rewards. It's not supposed to be monetization or whatever.
Correct. I completely agree with you on that.
Unless you're letting us pay directly for what it is, you know, like vanity stores would be like the next thing that we're gonna talk about, which is like what we see in Destiny, the Division, all that. And where we can directly go and choose what we want. It's like, if I want to drop $10 on a costume, I can, because I want that, and that's how I support my developer. I'm not forced to buy a lot of games, you know, to get to. How can I put it? I'm not supposed to spend a lot of money to play your game. I already bought your game. Unless your game is free to play, that's a whole different story. Okay, fine, it's understandable, because the game is free. But if I'm already paying for a full game, you need to provide a full game that can then have additional mechanics and features that could have that. But the vanity store thing is, I think, the better option, which is what a lot of other developers are trying to do. Of course, again, it's about how much effort they put in. Going back to, just real quick, just to go back on a thing, you were saying, like, you know, Battlefront was less than the Battlefront that we got in the PS2 days. We got to consider it, like, you know, from an EA standpoint, like a business standpoint, and this is the problem with branding, and we can go off on other things, but the point is, DICE makes Battlefield, and they make Battlefront. Battlefield is a pretty massive game, and it's hard to program, and honestly, it comes out pretty glitchy a lot of times, so they have to put a lot of effort in there. So for them to do that, plus work on Battlefront aside, in a 2-year turnaround time, you know, they essentially made a smaller game, hoping that they can monetize off the license. We showed them that's not the way. Sure, they made their money, this and that, but the support wasn't there afterwards, which is what they wanted. They wanted us to keep supporting the game afterwards. But when we showed that we weren't going to, it proved the case that, you know, they can't just release a crappy game. So obviously they tried better. You know, they did that, and then the whole government thing that Michael just explained, you know, ended up changing the whole development cycle for them. But I just wanted to point that out. Remember, they make 2 games at the same time, and they're obviously going to prioritize the game that they actually, you know, make more money off of. They just felt that they could sell it with the Star Wars license, and we just showed them that that's not the case. So now they're going to put their effort on both things. That's why we haven't seen a new Battlefield. I mean, I think the last game we got was Battlefield 5 last year, and they haven't done anything this year. We were supposed to get Battlefront 3 this year, according to, you know, the release cycles, but we didn't. You know, they're going to take extra time, probably make it for next gen, you know, improve the engine, do better things. So,
but to tie it into the main topic at hand, right?
Yeah.
Because we're saying a lot of things, and we got to make sure we're kind of organized with it. I'm using this as a point as to why I think games as a service overall is a bad thing, because you see what it leads to is right. That game, like, developers are starting to become more interested in making a profit rather than making a game. So there's 2 different approaches that you could basically have to it. It's either, one, make a game that's so good that everyone will buy it and you make a profit that way, or, just as in the example of Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, you put minimal effort into it. And what you do instead is you put all these things to slow down people, like, you know, slow down the rate you get experience, and put all the good characters as paid DLC and this and that, and then you try to force profits out that way, and ultimately it makes the games worse, and it comes at the cost of the consumer, the players. Look what happened immediately after they got punished for it. All of a sudden, they fixed the experience system. They took out the loot boxes.
Look at me over there, please. So it looks like you're looking at me, because when you look at me directly, it looks like you're looking.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
we have all these additional. Sorry, you made me lose my track of thought there, man. So no, that's fine. That's fine. Hold on. I got you. So they do all these things that basically end up hurting the consumer to try to line their pockets. For no reason. And look what happens immediately once they get punished for doing that is, oh, now in Battlefront 2, the experience system works. There's no more loot boxes. And you have like 20 free DLC that's released afterwards, and things that everyone wants. They put Republic Commando in there. They put, you know, General Grievous, Dooku, Anakin, da. If you guys would have done this to begin with, you could have monetized some of the DLC, and you would have had everyone go crazy for the game to begin with. Right. Now, I love Battlefront 2 as it is now. But you guys really had to get slapped around that hard for you to make your product that they should have been to begin with, like really. And then what happens after Battlefront 2? They released what's the name of this game? The one where it's kind of like Demon Souls but Star Wars. It's kind of like the revival of the Jedi Knight series.
Oh yeah. Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, so Jedi Fallen Order.
It is a continuation, or like it's like a remake sort of.
Exactly.
The same thing.
So we get Jedi Fallen Order. No DLC, no multiplayer BS, none of that. You guys really, like, you guys have to get slapped on the bum for you guys to do that? And that's what I'm trying to say, is that games as a service ultimately incentivize, it enables this sort of BS. Yeah. Where, yeah, there's a few good things here and there, but ultimately, I think it's being used to do more bad than good. Hey there, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Co-op Syndicate. Make sure to check out both the Co-op Syndicate main channel and clip channel to get all of our content. If you haven't already, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing the bell as well so that you never miss out on any future episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your friends and family, or you could also share it on any social media website of your liking. If you guys would prefer to listen to our podcast on the go instead of viewing the full episode on YouTube, consider checking the Co-op Syndicate podcast out at TheCo-OpSyndicate.buzzsprout.com. We host the Co-op Syndicate on Buzzsprout, and it is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere where you listen to your podcasts. If you'd like to watch us as we record the podcast live, you could actually give us a follow at twitch.tv/Co-op Syndicate. We go live every Thursday and Saturday at 4:30 p.m. If you'd like to support the channel, you could consider subscribing to us with Amazon Prime for free over there. If you'd like to participate in community events and talk to other members of the community, consider joining our Discord, which I will leave the links to in the description down below. If you would like to support the podcast and get rewarded in return, consider pledging to our podcast at patreon.com/Co-op Syndicate, where you can support us at many different levels. There are multiple tiers that offer all sorts of different rewards for the level that you choose to support us at, including Discord privileges, merch, gift cards, and much more. Also, if you would just like the merch directly without pledging to the Patreon, you could buy our merch at merch.streamelements.com/Co-op Syndicate. Lastly, if you'd like to keep up with Jordan or I outside of the Co-op Syndicate, you can find us on every social media platform under Michael C. Moore for myself, or JG_Mark1 for Jordan. Thank you guys again, and until next time, happy listening.